I've been posting a lot of TikToks and IG Reels talking about my Splange, and I realized that I hadn't done really a grip tutorial on it. I'm gonna pull down right through those seams.
Like that?
Yeah, baby. Yeah. Stay through it, pull down, less is more. Holy takeoff, Johnny. Isn't it crazy? So like, here's my thing.
Dude, that was, dude, like, I know that's not what you were looking for, but that was movement wise, just if we're talking about just raw movement, that was gross.
So here's my thing, which is interesting, because to get that movement on that pitch that I just got, you would think to like early pronate and turn over.
Yeah.
Whereas like when I get that movement is when I'm through it, and I'm getting like extension behind it, rather than like trying to make it move by, which is crazy, right? Because you would think the opposite. There's some discrepancy with, you know, what quantifies a splange versus a changeup versus a splitter. And I'll be completely honest, I really do believe it's all up to the individual that's throwing it, right? You can kind of decide, it's like the whole thing with like curveballs and sliders. Oh, that's a slurve. Oh, that's a curveball. I throw this and that. It's like, well, it looks like that. Who cares, right? I'm going to call mine a splange for reasons that we'll talk about here in this video. But I was under the impression that the typical reason of why someone would call their splitter or changeup a splange was because they're obviously splitting these two fingers like a splitter, right? But they're also incorporating their ring and pinky finger in the ball. And some, I believe, because I've kind of played around with this as well, because I've been a splitter guy, some will even split the two fingers here and then do like some circle, like kind of a circle change type dynamic here. I believe that at least one of the guys that I was talking to a couple years back that threw a splange would even think about like turning it over like you would with a regular changeup. Whereas I believe guys that throw a splitter, as I said, I've been a splitter guy kind of my whole entire career. I'm thinking like through it and like down, which is a totally different, you know, release point. So although with my new splange, as I show you this grip, all right, so 4-seam here, high seam. If you're gonna throw a high seam 4-seam like this, I'm gonna go like here around it. So now I'm pulling this guy right here, and then I can put that seam in my crevice of my middle finger. So again, going back to the reason of why and how I guess that started, it kind of happened on accident, I'll be completely honest. So winter ball prep, if you guys have been following my live ABs on YouTube before I came out here for the 2021 winter ball season, you'll know that I was kind of going back and forth with like a splitter or like a changeup. As a starting pitcher, I throw a lot of changeups. As a reliever, I like to throw more splits, more of a comfort factor. So I was literally coming to Puerto Rico with the intentions of throwing both a changeup, which I held kind of like this around the 4-seam, and a split, which I held right around the 2-seam here. Okay, so now with this grip, you can obviously get the indication with my old splitter that out of the hand, it was spinning not even relatively close to what my 4-seam fastball spun like. The reason why I loved throwing this changeup, although extremely inconsistent, especially for some reason out of the pen, if I've been a changeup guy out of the pen, the changeup has been an inconsistent thing. I don't know why, something about being a starter and getting like the feel for it, maybe in like the 2nd or 3rd inning, whereas as a bullpen guy, you can't afford that, right? You got to come out of the gates with your best stuff. But going back to the reason why I love this changeup that I was throwing in like live ABs, the feedback that I was getting was like 4-seamer out of the hand, spun just like my 4-seamer, really good arm speed, and really good speed differential. Like that was the big thing. I was getting swing and misses because of the speed differential was around 12, 14. So then when I came to Puerto Rico, I would throw both, and I was just getting a lot of feedback from a lot of guys, catchers, hitters, whatever, and kind of came to the overall consensus that that splitter that I came into camp with, that I was throwing, was just a drastically different pitch out of the hand. Now, again, really good hitters will identify that, whereas like, you know, mediocre hitters, they're going to go solely based off like arm speed and like release tunnel, right? And then the changeup, they just said that it was good pitch. I was getting swing and misses because of the speed differential, but in terms of, you know, like the movement profile on it, the amount of movement that it was getting, very low, which could run into obviously trouble with guys, you know, who have a barrel or a bat path that stays in the zone for a long period of time. Now the guys that are thinking launch angle or whatever, that's probably a pretty good pitch for them. So now to the Splange grip. This happened, like I said, on accident. I was literally in catch play with no intentions of working on a new grip. And I literally was throwing my 4-seam fastball on this, right? So I was throwing it on the high seam right here with the horseshoe that side. And then I was just kind of like dawned on me like, well, what if I just use that splitter grip, widen my fingers around the 4-seam and just threw it like a fastball? And so I was literally playing catch with it and just kind of pulling it down and or whatever, getting some pretty good feedback on those seams, and got really good feedback from the guy that I was playing catch with. And it's been kind of like an evolution with the pitch just in the last couple weeks, trying to identify like, okay, what do I got to do with my fingers? What do I got to do with this ring finger here and my thumb placement to maybe, you know, induce more movement, more drop, more fade, higher velocity, lower velocity, and all those things that kind of come with developing a new pitch. And just, I think when it comes to a pitch grip in general, the most important piece is like the comfort level. And that was always a thing coming out of the pen with that changeup that I was throwing, was it was always like super uncomfortable. I didn't know why. Maybe it was something to do with like the amount of fingers wrapping around the ball. Like it was, you know, drastically different than any other pitch I threw. So now the Splange has been surprisingly a really good pitch for me in this winter ball season. But the reason why I call it a Splange is because it's not really a splitter, because I don't think anyone really throws like a 4-seam splitter, and it's more of like a changeup because it doesn't like have that boom like a splitter would or like a forkball would. So it's been anywhere from like 80 to 85, I think, which has been ideal for me. And again, I'm just kind of, it's still new, so I'm still playing around with something that I do like though. Been playing around with this the last few days is this ring finger here, kind of hooking that seam, because it feels kind of uncomfortable honestly at first, because you're like, whoa dude, like that's not supposed to be that thing, right? So then I hook that with my ring finger and the pinky finger kind of just chills. And the biggest cue, and I talked about this in a recent like flat ground video, was you would think in order to get like a lot of movement on a particular pitch, like a changeup or a splitter, you would want to like turn it over, right? Or to get fade, horizontal fade, you would want to like manipulate it and turn it over like this and have the ball kind of go, right? Whereas it's the opposite for me. So I have these seams right here on my middle and index, and that's like really good feedback for me to feel that I'm going out front, like I'm almost pulling it down. And with my release angle, right, my release height being way up here, I can really feel that my fingers pull it down, but they go through it, and the ball now comes out like a 4-seam spin. You know, there's not a drastic difference in the move or in the spin profile, but now it has actually a better opportunity to have late depth and run. Which has been another fascinating thing for me lately, is just seeing like the movement on the pitch, because a lot of times it's totally different movement profile. There's been some times in games where I'll get middle finger dominant on this, and I don't feel that I'm pulling down evenly with the 2 fingers, and I'll get middle finger dominant and it'll come off and it'll like cut down. I have yet to throw it right on right. I don't think I've thrown one right on right, but I want to. If I can master the movement that I'm getting in recent flat grounds, then it's definitely a pitch I want to throw right on right. But yeah, that's what I got for you guys. A little Splange piece. One more time with the grip, Johnny. All right. So I'm pulling down this finger and I'm putting the crevice of my middle finger in that seam. Thumb onto the side, middle finger wrapping it, and I'm just thinking like I want the ball to feel like, or the fingers pulling down on the sides of the ball. That. Evenly too, like even amount of pressure. Because if it's too much pressure on one side, it'll kind of jack up the whole thing. So, all right, hope you guys got something out of that. I'm parched now.